job. Lack of candor, just there's no coming back from that. So I really want to see this report and be able to judge, well, what exactly was said. Did he flat out lie? You know, I spoke with McCabe, and he is adamant. You know, he did not mislead anybody. That he did not lie. He was not that he did show candor, and that this is all an effort to discredit him. And frankly, I mean, the president's tweets over the weekend and John Dowd's statements, you know, play right into that argument, because there were career officials at the FBI and Justice Department involved in this process, and the DOJ would very much like to remind the public that this is a real process, not a politicized one. But the president, by every time he opens his mouth on Twitter and brings up Andrew McCabe and taunts him or goads him or talks about his wife or his pension, right, it just adds to McCabe's defense that this is all about Mueller. This is all about trying to discredit me.
Right. So Matt, let me stay with you on this and come back to my question about Sessions. There are a couple different questions. I'll unpack my initial first cut at this and just sort of say, first of all, there's obviously a theory out there that Sessions was given a litmus test here by Trump, and it's a sort of a conspiracy theory in some ways, but the notion that Sessions kind of by agreeing to fire McCabe, preserved his own position. But embedded within that question is another question that I'd like you to address, which is the question of how it is that Sessions could make this decision at all, given that he is supposedly recused from anything that touches on the Russia investigation, which McCabe, as he rightly points out, could end up being a witness in a variety of different potential forums going forward, depending on what Mueller does.
Right. I mean, that's a good question. I think that the four corners of the McCabe issue, if you read it narrowly, doesn't touch on Russia, right? I mean, ultimately, this is about whether he was honest with internal investigators that was related to a 2016 article in the Wall Street Journal that was related to Hillary Clinton. So it wasn't related to Trump. And so a narrow reading of this would suggest that this doesn't have anything to do with Russia, and this wouldn't cover the Attorney General's recusal. But of course, if you just pulled back the lens a little bit, it becomes really hard to separate Andrew McCabe and Russia. I mean, he was there from day one when the Australians come to the FBI and say, we have information about George Papadopoulos, the Trump campaign advisor, that he has potentially inside information about Russian hacking. Andrew McCabe is there. So it's very hard to separate those two.
Right. And Matt, he's already saying he's got the notion that he has these notes from his interactions with Trump around the firing of Comey puts him right in the middle of the obstruction of justice question. So it's kind of this is all balled up together. It's hard to make a clean case that Sessions that this is wholly apart from what the special prosecutor's doing or from the Russia investigation, given that McCabe touches almost everything that has to do with the Justice Department and these relevant matters.
Absolutely, and the president doesn't make it any easier on Jeff Sessions to try to stake out that, you know, this was all fair and balanced and impartial by the fact that he's publicly needled the Attorney General to do. Why hasn't he fired Jeff Sessions? I mean, why? Excuse me. The president has tweeted, why hasn't he replaced Andrew McCabe? You know, and McCabe would say, look, this is evidence that there is a war going on between the President of the United States and the FBI and Bob Mueller, and Andrew McCabe is in the middle of it. And until we see this report, we can't really judge for ourselves what the underlying facts are.
As to why he was fired. The Sessions questions are just one sliver of this. Last night, the White House faulted the media for questioning whether President Trump will fire Special Counsel Robert Mueller after the president and one of his top lawyers offered unprompted criticism of Mueller this weekend amid a string of tweets about the dismissal of career FBI agent Andrew McCabe, a potential witness in the Mueller probe, just hours before his full pension eligibility. President Trump issued his first tweets specifically attacking Mueller by name. Quote, the Mueller probe should never have been started, that there was no collusion and there was no crime. It was based on fraudulent activities and a fake dossier paid for by crooked Hillary and the DNC and improperly used in FISA court for surveillance of my campaign witch hunt. Why does the Mueller team have 13 hardened Democrats and some big crooked Hillary supporters and 0 Republicans? Another Dem recently added, does anyone think this is fair? But the president has falsely claimed there was no crime, falsely claimed that the probe is based on the dossier, used a disputed argument about the FISA court, and falsely claimed there are 0 Republicans on Mueller's team, among other falsehoods and exaggerations leveled this weekend. We'll fact-check all of this as the morning goes on. In a statement, the president's special counsel, Ty Cobb, said in response to media speculation and related questions being posed to the administration, the White House yet again confirms that the president is not considering or discussing the firing of special counsel Robert Mueller. This, as new pressure on the president and his lawyers appeared to have led to these new attacks. The New York Times reports the president's tweets came as Mueller is said to have sent questions to Trump's legal team as part of negotiations over an interview with the president. And after reports that Mueller subpoenaed the Trump organization, demanding about Russia. On Saturday, Trump's outside counsel, John Dowd, told the Daily Beast, I pray that Acting Attorney General Rosenstein will follow the brilliant and courageous example of the FBI Office of Professional Responsibility and Attorney General Jeff Sessions and bring an end to alleged Russia collusion investigation manufactured by McCabe's boss, James Comey, based upon a fraudulent and corrupt dossier. When the Daily Beast initially asked Dowd if he was speaking on behalf of the president, he answered yes, as his counsel. After publication of this story, however, Dowd emailed to say he was actually speaking in his personal capacity and not on the president's behalf. What a mess. Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Trey Gowdy, had this to say.
If you have an innocent client, Mr. Dowd, act like it. Russia attacked our country. Let Special Counsel Mueller figure that out. And if you believe, as we found, there's no evidence of collusion, you should want Special Counsel Mueller to take all the time and have all the independence he needs to do his job.
I mean, Josh Earnest, just watching the story from the outside, not even knowing Trump, I mean, I have a little bit of insight to his patterns. Yeah. But it appears that the questions freaked them out. They melted down.
Yeah, and certainly raising the prospect of the president having to testify and actually answer questions himself that are posed by Bob Mueller, I think freaked him out. I think it should freak him out. Look, the fact of the matter is they have not been able to get their story straight. And that what we see continuously throughout this process and what we've seen since the beginning of last year is actually a concerted attempt on the part of this White House not to provide greater clarity about what potentially had happened in the context of the election, and not provide a clear plan about what we can do to respond to it, but rather to obfuscate at every turn and try to make it less clear about what's actually going on. Look, I don't personally happen to have a particularly favorable view of Trey Gowdy, but he makes a really good point. The fact of the matter is, if you're innocent, you should act like it. And say what you want about the Trump White House, they are not acting like they're innocent right now.
This White House, Mike Barnicle, has lost so many people, some resigning, some being fired, more to come. What a mess. Big picture, we have big issues impacting this country, and yet it appears everything stops with this investigation into the president, into his administration, into Russia collusion, and the president seems overly focused on it on a personal level, especially with Andrew McCabe, let alone the Stormy Daniels revelations of her being threatened that are hanging around as well, sort of weighing over this president, which we know bothers him deeply.
Meeker, it's 17 past the hour. And I am already exhausted from what we've been talking about. Unpacking everything that occurred just within 24 to 48 hours is utterly exhausting as well as depressing. Donald Trump is the President of the United States. As such, he is the Commander-in-Chief. And his behavior over the recent past, his tweets, things he has said on the stump, things he has said in the Oval Office have proven that he is uniquely ill-equipped for this job as president. Morally, ethically, psychologically, you name it. He's proving it every day. And David Ignatius, I would like to ask you, Russia attacked us. The commander-in-chief has done little about this, has said practically nothing about this. What's the impact of his inaction and his inability to deal with attacks on his country, our country? What's the impact of that on diplomats?